what's the difference between alcoholism and addiction? To me, in my humble experience, I don't see any difference actually. I see it as addiction to mind-altering drugs. People that are sensitive to addiction or have developed addiction already seem to be addicted to all mind-altering drugs. We say that addiction is a deadly disease. I like to talk about that recovery is fun, recovery is exciting, and recovery is something very, very beautiful. I prefer to talk about the solution rather than to talk about the problem. But when I do talk about the problem, I do want to acknowledge that addiction is a deadly disease. Unfortunately, some of you have probably already experienced that, and I have as well. I have, unfortunately, a lot of friends that have died from addictions. I also have close family members that have passed away due to addiction. Another thing is that I don't like to compare different types of drugs usually, and again that's probably why I don't like to talk about the problem. I rather talk about the solution. But if I'm asked about different types of drugs and say, for example, isn't alcohol a mild drug, and alcohol is legal, so that's a different drug than all the rest, I disagree. I mean, it's legal, all right, but it's one of the most deadliest drugs we have. People usually don't die from overdosing on alcohol, but they die from accidents, they die from suicide because of alcohol-induced depressions. They die from diseases that alcoholism has caused. So it sometimes can be a slow death, but it sure is a deadly disease or a deadly drug. I have a friend that I grew up with, so a childhood friend. He became addicted to heroin and amphetamine. He came into recovery, or he got sober through being in a rehab, and we hadn't been in touch for many years at that point, but he contacted me and he was so happy to be sober and in recovery. He wrote me on Facebook, and he knew I was in recovery for a few years. He was happy to tell me that he was doing well and he was in recovery, and I was super happy for him and excited. And all of a sudden, in one of the messages, he asked me, so why don't we go for a beer some night? And I was like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? I'm sober. I don't drink beer. He's like, yeah, but it's just beer. I mean, I was addicted to hard drugs. I don't have a problem with alcohol. I was like, okay, that's maybe the case with you, but I'm addicted to all mind-altering drugs. So if I drink a glass of alcohol, even if it's just a glass of wine, that can actually be deadly to me. Not the first glass, of course, but I won't stop at the first glass. The communication actually stopped there, and 6 months later, I got the very, very tragic news that he had passed away. And he passed away from a heroin overdose, but I see it as him dying from alcohol, actually, because it was the first drink that killed him, as I see it. Because I can imagine he, not the first time he drank, not the second time, maybe not even the 10th time, but at some of those times when he drank, his judgment went down, and he thought that, just one last time with heroin, and unfortunately became the last time. Very, very, very sad. It was a bright kid with his future ahead of him if he would have just kept in recovery and wouldn't have taken that first glass. That's a misconception that many people have, that alcohol is somewhat different to other drugs. And it is different in our culture. It is legal, it is accepted culturally, but it is a very, very mind-altering drug, especially for some people. And I recognize that some people, obviously, that's an obvious given, that some people are able to drink a few glasses of wine. Sure, absolutely. Most people, actually, about 85, maybe 90% of all people are able to drink just a few glasses of wine. But if you are sensitive to addiction, or if you already have developed addiction, that first drink can actually cause you a lot of pain and years of suffering, and worst case, it can actually kill you.